we'll call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome and thank you for attending this evening. Just want to note that roll call, all council members are present, and we did have an amended agenda that was presented this evening. So is there any additional changes to the agenda as presented? Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda that we got tonight?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dave, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Warren. Is there any discussion? Call the motion, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. We have our minutes from our October 1st meeting. Is there any changes or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Motion to approve. Second.
A motion by Warren and seconded by Dave. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. At this time is our public open forum. Is there anybody here who wishes to address the council? Anybody wish to address the council for anything? Third time, anybody wish to address the council? Hearing none, we will move on. We have no public hearings. We have several reports this evening. We'll start out with the police department monthly report. Brian?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Activity report for September 2014. Some of the numbers we had for that month. We had 12 alarm calls. We had 13 personal assists for people. We had 31 assists for other agencies. 8 dog complaints. We had 14 driving after cancellation or revoked or suspended license citations. We had 6 driving complaints. We had 4 small amount of marijuana arrests, 2 felony warrant arrests, 24 matter of information calls, 13 medicals, 15 no proof of insurance citations, 7 driving without a driver's license at all citations, 4 accidents, 15 suspicious calls. We had 5 thefts. And we had 236 verbal warnings. Total activity was 574. And comparing that to 2013, looks like everything was up a little bit. And comparing it to last month, everything was down a little bit. So pretty average though.
Brian, I know you said up a little bit. It's actually up 200 calls. So I'm just wondering,
Yeah, I don't
do you
know.
recall from last year to?
Well, I just noticed that one month there was really untypically not average for that 2013
You
there.
might want to just look at at that month when you
Yeah.
put together next month, just to verify that's
That
accurate.
looks not average, but, yeah. And then the report on our canine, the trainer has another dog now. Looks like it's a black lab and his name is Jimmy. So he's working with that right now.
Is that our second dog? Did you say what?
I don't know if you were here when we had, the first dog was fired.
That was last month, which I was not here. So.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the first dog that he was training with, he fired that dog. It was not working out well for him, and he was not happy. And he's pretty particular about the dogs he puts out of his school. So he went searching for another dog and is currently training with that one now.
So our timeline's pushed back a bit.
Yep, everything's back, but we're in no hurry. So
Perfect.
yep,
Thank you. Any questions for Brian?
yep.
Just one thing, the cage we're getting for the LTD, I think it is, that the cage for the canine?
Yes, we have one.
Yeah, is that car still in use? I mean, do we use that on patrol?
Yes. Yep,
Okay.
we've been using it.
How far out are we from getting our pooch? Did he?
I would say a month, if not longer.
Okay.
2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we should, will the car will still be available when we get the dog? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
without a lot of more miles on it? Or?
No, it should be good. It should, I think we're around, well, it's around 90,000 on that car.
Okay.
So, yeah. But we take pretty good care of it, so I'm hoping it'll go for a while yet.
Okay, thank
Give it a
you.
year. All right.
Any other questions? Thanks, Brian.
Yep, thank you.
Move on then to our ambulance report. Kathy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here for the third quarter report. In July, we had a total of 62 call-outs. Of those 62, 22 were no loads or cancels, 12 were advanced life support transfers, and 6 were BLS transfers with 22 scene responses. Your report is a little different. It shows 50 or 28 there, but we did not have 28 BLS transfers that month. It was 6 BLS transfers and 22 scene responses, so for a total of 62, 40 of those were billed out. In August, our total call load was 76, which is up just slightly from last year. 16 of those were no loads, 7 ALS transfers, and then 19 BLS transfers with 18 scene responses, for a total of 60 billed calls for that month, which is about average of last year and up from the 2 years before that. September, we had a total of 70 call-outs. I'm sorry, that was 2013. September was a really slow month for us this year. We had 39 call-outs as opposed to 70 last year and 60 the year before, so that is really down for us. Of those 39 calls, 8 were no loads, 8 are ALS transfers, 10 were BLS transfers, and then 13 scene responses. So you can see that last year we had 70 call-outs in September compared to 39 this year. For July, we billed out 41,420. August was 63,177, and September 34,421, for a total of $139 and $19. And it shows the rig usage as well. We used 561 on 86 of those calls, 562 for 59 of the calls, and 563 were used for 32 of those calls. And it's got the mileage for each rig listed as well. Our cancel and no loads, the most of those were due to crashes that we didn't transport, and fair, parade, standby activities was the kind of the majority. And then our receiving facility still is, of course, Sauk Center, Centricare, followed by St. Cloud Hospital. And we did 3 airport transports, 3 out-of-state hospital transports, and then several from the cities and some detox centers. Any questions for me?
Lifelink helipad, is that completed up at the hospital now?
I don't believe so.
No.
Keith? No?
We just received the prints for it today.
Okay. So we're still doing transfers to the airport and meeting Lifelink there when
Correct.
need be?
And from what we've heard from Lifelink is that they're going to be using the plane more often as well. So even when we get the helipad at the hospital, we might still be doing some transfers to the airport to meet with the airplane.
Where does the
medical
plane
unit.
come out of?
Alec still.
The plane and so they have 2 units in Alec then?
I don't know if they'll move things around
Okay,
when they start using the plane more.
gotcha. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Thanks, Kathy.
All right, thank you.
We'll move on then to our park board report.
Okay, the Park Board met in regular session on Tuesday, October 7th. We have a few items on the agenda that I highlighted here, and I think 3 of them actually are action items later on this evening. The first item, they received information and they're recommending the purchase of heaters over the arena bleachers. That's action item 7C. They recommend the city advertise for naming rights for the Splash Pad Park, which is item 7E, and they received information on the Splash Pad funding and recommend going out for bid on that on item 7D. They also are recommending an amendment to the seasonal camper contract, which requires campers to be backed into their space to preserve the front yards of each of the units, between the units. And they did receive some positive input on the campground managers and negative input on any proposed rate increase. So you'll have some action items later on the agenda on the Park Board.
Any questions? This time? No? Thank you, Vicki. You want to go right into the EDA report?
The EDA met last week as well in regular session on Wednesday, October 8th. And there is a potential new building going into the industrial park, which is a build to lease with Sauk Center opportunities. And then we have a recommendation on some property purchase south of for the South Industrial Park. We have 2 options to be discussed, and those will be discussed tonight in the closed session. And we have recommendations from the EDA on those.
Any questions? Thank you, Vicki. That is the end of our reports. We'll move into our action items. Action item 7A is to approve resolution 2014-79, changing a road name, Railroad Court. Vicki?
The residents of Catholic Charities, if you're familiar where the Catholic Charities apartments are, they're at the end of 9.5 Street, which the very end of it turns into Railroad Avenue Court. And some of the residents there were saying that people were having difficulty locating them. When they call the city bus, it ends up on Railroad Avenue over by the Ding Dong rather than Railroad Avenue Court, which is at the end of 9.5 Street, which is about 200 feet down at that end. They requested that the city rename that. We did talk to the county about it, and of course, they're okay with it as long as it's effective after elections. There's some requirements of when you can rename roads, and it has to go around elections, so this would have to be effective after that, because the Secretary of State is pretty picky about making sure everybody's addresses are correct in their database. So what we're asking tonight is the city to rename that street and have it effective after the election date. And we do have an ordinance in the packet, Ordinance 749, which renames Railroad Avenue Court to 9.5 Street. And that Catholic Charities building is the only apartment or only building that is addressed off of that address. The house that's there that actually accesses on that does have a 9.5 Street address, if you look at the aerial.
Any questions?
No.
Seems pretty straightforward. I know, it's being on the fire department stuff and I've been asked multiple times about where that street is, so I think changing it.
I just wanted to add too that we've had a lot of issues with that when law enforcement too, through responding to vehicles there.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think it's a good change to do.
Thank you, Brian.
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 749 renaming Railroad Avenue Court to 9.5 Street.
I have a motion by Mike. Is there a second? A motion by Mike and seconded by Dave. Is there any further discussion? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. Moving on to 7B, approved resolution 2014-80, granting a lot split. Vicki?
If you look at the survey that you have, it's actually turned to the side north is toward the binder, so if you want to get your bearings on what that is. But Valerie Colin Becker, she's at 220 Ferry Lake Road, Sauk Center. She's submitted a request for a lot split. The property is located at the corner of Ferry Lake Road and Sinclair Lewis Avenue. We do have the certificate of survey, and there's actually 2 parcels right now. One is I think I have it blue, but the blue and the green didn't show up too different. And then the little corner one in the red. So you have the red was one lot and all the rest of it was the other lot. And what they want to do is reconfigure that lot line to that east-west line that is about halfway up. So if you can kind of see, we'll have parcel A and parcel B. So what the request is to split that big lot and recombine the bottom half with the red lot, if that makes sense for you. What they're planning to do is that we will be seeing a future application for an amendment to the zoning map for that southerly parcel. It is currently zoned residential. At the time in the future, then it'll have to go to a public hearing to the Planning Commission for the rezoning, but it came straight here for the lot split first. The lot area minimums in residential is 10,500, and the two parcels will be 34,000 and 41,000 square feet, so they meet that lot area. The lot frontage minimum in a R1 is 75 feet, and they are 191 and 136. So they more than exceed the minimum requirements for a lot in that zoning district. And also looking ahead, that lot also exceeds the lot size requirements for any potential rezoning in the future. So what we're looking for tonight is to approve Resolution 2014-80, granting this minor subdivision and recombination, I guess is kind of what it is, to Valerie Colin Becker.
All right, any questions? As Vicki noted, the red lines will actually come out, and you will have then just two parcels. Okay. Hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2014-80, granting the minor subdivision recombination to Valerie Colin Becker as presented?
So move.
Second.
We got a motion by Warren, seconded by Dave. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. All right, moving on to 7C, approved purchase of heating system, Civic Arena. Vicki?
The Park Board has been working with the Sauk Center Youth Hockey Association on some maintenance and improvements at the Civic Arena. Several items have been painted, repaired, and installed, etc. Those would include player bench extensions, privacy walls, extra lockers, shooting lanes, fixing a speaker, rubber floors in one of the locker rooms, etc. The Hockey Association's been overseeing and volunteering for those, and they've committed approximately $5,000 of the $6,000 cost of those repairs. The Park Board had authorized to spend up to $1,000 toward the project. In addition to that, the association has requested that the city install infrared heaters over the bleachers. We first obtained the first bid for proposal, which covered the middle 70 feet of the bleachers, and including installation, with the owner being the city to provide the electrical. That bid came in at $10,820. They went, then after some more discussion, went to St. Cloud Refrigeration. They kind of do that for a living, specialize, and they came out and they recommended that to do the entire length rather than do part of it now and then try to extend it later, which would, be quite more expensive. So they were recommending 4 heaters totaling 160 feet at $17,400. So we had the first bid was at 70 feet, the second at 160, and you can see the difference from 10.8 to 17.4. After discussion with the association, the Park Board recommended that the City Council approve the installation with St. Cloud Refrigeration because of the full-length installation would eliminate any extra costs in the future. That St. Cloud Refrigeration provided a labor and parts warranty, and that they have experience in installing over 100 units. And they had the following conditions. The city would provide the electric to the unit, the association to cover the extra cost of gas during the heating season. The association would pay the first $10,000 toward the cost of the installation, and then the city would cover above that. So if it came in right at $17,400, they would pay $10,000, the city would pay $7,400. But ours was capped. If our cost went up to $10,000, then we would start splitting it again 50-50, the costs over that. So it would, understood by the Park Board that the expense would need to be paid for with the reserve funds for the arena, since the cost is over our annual maintenance budget. So we do have reserve funds in the arena fund, and this would dip into those reserve funds, and the Park Board discussed that as well. And so the action that they're recommending is to approve the installation of the heaters by St. Cloud Refrigeration with those conditions. The Hockey Association is represented here tonight if anybody has any specific questions that either the Warren from the Park Board or myself are unable to answer.
Is there any reason that didn't go back to Kleinschmidt to get another bid?
We did go back and talk to him about that, and at that point he said, he actually declined to submit a new written bid, and he said based on the parameters that he would recommend we went with St. Cloud. So.
Okay.
And when would they be looking at installing this?
The installation was going to occur almost immediately. We have the issue with the ice is going to start going in next week. We're kicking on the compressors this Friday, so we kind of have to deal with how do we do that, and it would be cold in there. And the other issue, of course, is we were pushing the bleachers. How do we get them back out? That's the thing that we're working on right now, and whether a different kind of lift system could be used so that we don't have to push the bleachers in.
So I guess to answer my question, they're going to start doing the installation right away, and it'll be for this year's hockey season. It would be working?
We would like to have it in and running before the first game in December. Is that my understanding? Yes. Okay.
Well, 3 weeks to get the system.
3 weeks?
And then probably we can install it at a regular rate.
Okay. You mentioned taking it out of the reserves, Vicki, that $7,400 or the city's share. What's the balance of the reserves?
The reserve balance right now is about $65,000.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, then, is there a motion to approve the installation of heaters by St. Cloud Refrigeration as outlined in the proposal?
So moved.
Motion by Warren, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dave. Is there any discussion? None? Hearing no discussion, I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Okay, moving on to 7D. Approve Resolution 2014-82, solicitation of bids for the splash pad. Vicki?
The Park Board at its October 7th meeting is requesting that the City Council formally solicit bids for the construction of the splash pad expected to occur in the spring of 2015. The solicitation would include 5 components to be considered as a whole package. The first component would be the splash pad, the site plan, the plumbing schematic, and the related details. The second component is a complete recirculation system, including tank, pumps, chlorinator, sanitizer, and overflow discharge. The third component is the purchase of the interchangeable jets, the housings, the nozzles, the manifold, the control system, the activators, the timers, the above-ground and the in-ground features. The fourth component would be complete installation, including utilities and startup. And then the fifth component is the concrete slab, which is 1,500 square foot wet area and 1,000 square foot dry area. So then it's much more detailed in the specifications, of course. And we would have those details provided for an equal advertisement for everybody. The board is suggesting that bid be completed in November, so the potential is there to be first on the list for the spring installation. The final bid price was also provide the board and the committee with the final target for budget funding and give the City Council additional time to consider those options. And this would also give staff time over the winter to line up everything that would need to fall into place. And so we do have the resolution there for you. I do have a picture of, as near as we can tell based on what we've done so far, as what some of the components would look like in the park. You can see the dumping buckets in the rings and the ground sprays, and there's kind of a mushroom there. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it would look like. So what the Park Board feels is that they're at the point right now where they can go out and solicit those bids, and then those bids will be good for a period of time. So say the bids come in and they're good for 60 or 90 days, then that gives you time to up it or down it or amend it, or however you want to do that. Because at that point, then we would have to do the final financing, exactly how that would be funded. So what I have for you is the Resolution 2014-82, authorizing solicitation of bids for the splash pad design, purchase, and installation.
Thank you, Vicki. I know, some of us have had an opportunity to take a look at what we currently have done out there at the multipurpose park, and I think it's moving along very nicely. And others of us have came in and actually sat down with some of the members that are on this committee, as well as Vicki, me being one of them. And one of the things that I should just note is we did commit into moving forward with the multipurpose park when we did the multipurpose plan, and we had a number, and I know we had a number that everybody has been kind of working off of, and I believe the number was approximately $200,000 to do that project when we originally started talking. I think those were the numbers that was in our minds about we need to we need to go out and raise dollars. The city was going to provide, I believe, $50,000, and then they would, and we would match. Now we're at a point where we need to really get to the point about how much is this total going to be? What really, how many dollars are we looking at here? Is it 200? Is it 250? Is it 100? I think unless we solicit and get bids to really know how much this project's going to cost, it's very difficult, not only for the committee, but even for the city to plan or allocate dollars towards it without having any concrete numbers. So I'm very much in favor of getting the bids to give us an idea about where do we go next? How many dollars do we truly need? What is the project going to look like? What are the actual amenities of this splash pad going to be? Those are all big, important pieces to people that are interested in donating dollars to the overall plan. So we also have in our agenda tonight to talk about advertising and naming rights. And part of the things they want to do is to know what it is that they're going to be committing to. And I think this is just all supports that. So those are my thoughts. I will open it up to the council, and then we will ask for a direction for council to move forward. Anybody have any other thoughts, comments?
The one thing about going out for bids is we always have the right to either reject or accept the lowest. We can reject all of them if we want.
Absolutely.
And the only way we know what numbers we're actually looking at is if we do go out for bids.
Any other comments?
I got a couple questions.
Okay.
Where did the original 200,000 come from?
When the committee first started working, we met with a couple vendors and got some good ideas of what it would be. Unfortunately, we can't solidify those numbers because we surpassed the competitive bidding threshold. So that kind of puts this extra step of us having to put it out there. We will definitely ask those same vendors to submit a formal bid under this bid, and hopefully it comes in right about where they initially said it would. But, you know, until we actually have a formal bid, it kind of leaves them open to changes.
Correct. The 200,000, my understanding, was for a different system than you're asking for here now. I think the initial system, 200,000, was just run through, not to recirculate. And recirculating was going to add, from my understanding, talking with the committee, that was going to add another $50,000 to the project?
The recirculating system does cost more, and based on that 200,000, though, they went back to the vendor and they had we eliminated some of the above-ground features in order to try to stay within that same budget number.
Within the 200,000?
Yes.
Okay. So the council had, when this was first proposed, the council was discussing providing $50,000 as a match to the committee. It was my understanding that the committee was going to go out and raise the money for the pad, and that the council put a $50,000 match to help that process along. Was that right?
The council did, at the time, did authorize, I think, Dave, I think you might have made the motion, not sure, but to authorize up to 50,000,
Right.
they'd match the first 50,000, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know if it wasn't stated that they were responsible for the entire balance. It just gave them, okay, if we raise 50, that's doubled. And that's
Well,
kind of the premise they've been operating under.
Yeah, that was my understanding. When I supported it, was the fact that the committee was going to raise the money for the pad, because how much has the city put into developing that site so far? What do we have into it?
The city has put, we did $90,000 toward the shelter from the campground.
Right.
And we have done $10,000 towards the trail and $13,000 towards the sprinkler system. And the trail and the sprinkler system were park dedication funds.
Right, okay. So we've put on a little over 100,000
Correct.
into this project.
Into the multi-purpose park as a whole, yes.
Okay, and then we're committed to another 50,000 in the match. So we're around 160,000.
Sure.
Roughly into this so far. So you're talking about these bids going out now, and when would they come back? And
I would, in order to give them ample time, you'd want to probably give them at least 30 days. So
Okay.
I was thinking that maybe we would end it like right about Thanksgiving.
okay, and then you're expecting that those would be good for about 3 months.
A lot of times they're good for 60 to 90 days, or 60 days. It
So we would
depends.
have till March 1st, roughly? I mean,
To make a decision?
to make a decision?
You would. The one thing that would factor into that, though, is the longer you wait to act on it,
Yeah.
the further out it, because they get stacked up with
I
jobs.
understand.
You know how that works, so.
And my understanding, from what I was told, is it only takes a couple weeks to build these things. They're not all that complicated.
Correct. It doesn't take a long time.
Right,
It's just
okay.
a
So they
matter
can come
of
in
getting
and
the
knock it
crew
out.
scheduled, the installation crew.
So from the time that we would okay this to the time that it would be built would be how long, do you think?
Well, if we okayed it, say the end of the year, say December 31st,
Mm-hmm.
then they'd probably be the first one in the ground in May.
Okay, so that would
If
give
we
the...
waited till March, we might get it in September, October because of the
Okay.
extra ones that's the timeline that the
Uh-huh.
vendors are telling us.
So the committee would then have approximately 5 months to raise their, well, what I understand it to be about $150,000.
If the council decided that that 150 was the total responsibility of the committee, they
And,
would have to
yeah,
raise it
and-
by time we paid for it.
Yeah, and this is kind of news to me, because I must have missed something, but I was under the impression that they were going to do that. What has been raised so far in the process?
With the grant from the watershed, they're about 57,000.
57,000, so they're, in my calculation, they're about 93,000 away.
It depends on how much of the grant from the
Correct.
watershed, how that works out, but yeah. Because we've got
okay.
some in-kind costs.
So how much can we expect then, given what they've raised tonight? Can they raise, how much are they going to raise in 5 months?
It's hard to say exactly how much they would be able to raise. I mean, we have a small committee and they're working hard and they've got.
I understand.
They've got lives too. you know.
I
I think
understand.
if it's a whole citywide effort, I think it would be more productive. We'd get better results, or additional results, I should say.
So how confident are you that the committee's going to, how much do you think the committee can raise?
How much do I think they can raise? That's a tough question for me to answer.
Okay.
I've been going to some of their fundraising meetings, and they have a lot of good ideas. I think what they're stumping at right now is we've got some donors that are just kind of waiting to see what it looks like, because they want to sponsor like a piece, kind of like they did down in the park for Christmas lights, so they can
Right.
say that that's mine. And so that was part of the reason for going out to bid, so we actually have pictures of exactly what they're going to be looking at.
Is there any plan for raising any amount of money? Does the committee have any kind of steps laid out as how they would go about raising their money?
They do have plans. They do have, you certainly are welcome to come to their meeting and
Well,
maybe
I think-
discuss it in detail with them.
I guess that's something I've been asking for quite since this project started is, what's the committee's plan for raising the money? And so far all I've seen has been small events, which is usually what people usually do, are events, because no one likes to ask people for money. It's much easier to do events. So, but I haven't seen any kind of concrete how they're going to do it. My concern is that it seems to me it would make more sense if the city just said, you know what, we're just going to build this, instead of thinking that the committee's going to raise a substantial amount of money in 5 months. I don't know if that's going to be, if that's really feasible.
I'm good with that, too.
Yeah, and I think that, to some extent, that was, I feel like that was the plan all along anyways, that maybe why don't we just go ahead as a council and say, if we're going to put bids out, and then have a deadline for setting it to build without having the funds in some, lined up, I think it's problematic for the committee, because all of a sudden donors are saying, well, you're going to build it anyways. If I give now or down, there's no real kind of push to move ahead. So I think it's, we undercut the committee's ability to raise funds by doing this. And if we're going to go ahead and do this, then I would say by putting the bids out and already say we're going to build in the spring, I think it would be better if we just go ahead and say, you know what, we're going to fund this and we're going to make this happen. I don't know if I have a lot of confidence in the committee's ability to raise funds to meet this deadline, and in that case, well, let's just us do it.
So tonight, we're here to approve going out to bids, and I think there will be a tremendous amount more discussions about the funding side. There's no question there's other ways of raising additional funds. I think the committee's has worked extremely hard to get the $57,000 that they have. I'm sure there's opportunities out there for them to raise more. And however, I think the city's committed to this multi-purpose park, and I think we have made a lot of indications that the plan that was presented in the multi-purpose plan was something that this council felt and supported of, however, or we wouldn't be where we're at today. So I think what we do at this point would be to go to bids, get the bids in, find out exactly what the dollars are gonna be, and then we'll make the decision about how we'll fund it, whether or not we will set a new goal for the committee, or whether or not it'll be funded from an internal source from the city. Vicki and I actually had an opportunity to talk today a little bit about some other funding options that we have for this if it is driven by the city, and I believe there's 2-3 areas that we have dollars that have been allocated for these types of things, whether it's our parks or the betterment of our community as a whole, that we can draw from to pay for a lion's share of what's left. But that being said, we don't know that dollar number until we get a bid.
So, I'm sorry.
Yep.
So basically what you're saying is if the committee can raise the money, we'll use it. If they can't, we're going to build it anyways.
I would say
That's where we're at
when
right
we
now.
get the bids back, my thought would be is we'll know the total dollar amount, and we'll be able to work with the committee to determine if they have the ability to raise it or if there needs to be additional funding by the city. And those discussions will be made after bids come back.
Which is, if the committee isn't going to be able to raise the amount of money they need, we've committed that we're going to go ahead and build this.
We haven't committed we're going to build it until we get the bids back and we look at the bids.
But we're going to do something.
I'm guessing we're going to do something.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily saying that if we do out for bids, we're going to undercut any donations. Right now, the committee has absolutely no idea how much more they need to raise. People in the community and organizations or anybody else that wants to donate has no idea what it's going to take to do this project compared to what we've got raised already. We need to show them in black and white, this is where we're at, this is where we got to go. And without that out there for the community, we don't know. We're not undercutting anybody.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there an option out there that says we would not do this? That we would not build a splash pad? Is there a scenario that you can think of that would say, we're not going to do it?
If the bids come in 3 times higher than what they said originally when they first started this whole plan, I would say there's probably a good chance at it. So that's the reason why the city hasn't committed to doing anything, unless you're really going to throw out the money.
I'm just told that we're kind of committed to doing this. Are we committed to doing this?
We're committed to doing something.
We're committed to doing something, okay. But, so, but we are saying we're going to do something, and then now you're telling me, well, if it's 3 times, maybe if it's another 100,000 more, if it's, so there is a potential that this bid could come in too high for us.
Absolutely, Mike.
Okay.
Every council has the opportunity
Right, I
to look at
understand that.
every bid and to determine
Right.
if that bid is more than what they're willing to contribute to that project. So whether or not the city is going to do the project will not be determined until this council determines that, yes, we're going to pay X to X to complete this project. So just...
I know, I understand that, but I'm hearing both things from you.
So what I'm telling you is this council has the opportunity to not do anything.
Right.
I would hope, I won't be here, but I would hope this council will consider to move the project forward after all of the work, time, and money that's already been put into it. If they don't do the splash pad, I would certainly hope that they do something at that multi-purpose park rather than hills of dirt as it is today.
You might be here.
You might be here.
Yeah, I
November
was going to
bids.
say, we'll probably open these the first week of December, correct?
I hope
mean,
I'm
this
here,
is just
but it may be that it's in January. I'm sorry. So
I guess the main thing is you got to look
This
at
is just-
what you mean by doing something,
Well.
or doing something.
The splash pad is what people want.
If the bid comes in 3 times higher and the city says, no, we can't afford that balance, we're doing something. If it comes in and they cannot come up with the money and we decide to go with it, we're doing something. Either way, it's the same outcome.
all right, so I'm going to kind of take over this meeting and say we're going to call for an action one way or the other.
tell it.
Because this isn't going anywhere. So for that reason, we have a recommendation from the committee Does anybody like to entertain a motion?
I will make a motion that we authorize solicitation of bids for the splash pad design, purchase, and installation.
All right. So I have a motion by Keith that we
Second.
approve, let me just read the motion.
Go
To
ahead.
approve the resolution, Keith, of
Yes.
2014-82, authorizing solicitation of bids for splash pad design, purchase, and installation.
That's correct.
And I have a
Second.
second by Dave. All right. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. All right. Sorry, Vicki, that got longer than what you anticipated. Moving on to 7E, approve advertising for naming rights for multipurpose park.
Okay, a part of the fundraising plan, back to the splash pad, has been selling the naming rights for the park. We did bring this to the city council before, and they had some questions about it, and so the park board reviewed it again. And these are the very brief parameters. They want to have agreement for 20 years, after which the city council at that time can elect to continue to use the name, or change the name, or renew it. The names with political or religious affiliation will not be accepted. The city reserves the right to change the name if it becomes affiliated with criminal activity. The city reserves the right to reject or accept any bid, and the city will accept nominations until November 26, 2014. So basically, we're just looking for somebody to purchase the naming rights and to present a name with a dollar figure to the city council, or to the park board, I guess, and then to the city council for the name of the multipurpose park, which we have been calling kind of the splash pad park, but it'll have a name of some person, place, or thing. So what we're asking is just to approve the naming rights procedure and solicit the bids.
Any questions of staff?
I got one.
Okay.
Is there any expectation of what the value is?
We've heard everywhere from $5,000 to $40,000.
Well, what is the committee's expectation?
I think the committee is thinking more around between 25 and 30,000,
Percentage or?
not a percentage.
It's about $3 a day to sponsor the park. Is there been any consideration into different time lengths? Is there a reason that it has to be 20? Can it be 10?
It could be 10. I think 20 was, they went out to see what some other parks and cities had done. And so they came up with 20, because 10 goes really fast. In 20, you have a new generation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one comment, I think. Nominations are accepted until November 26th. It seems to me that we're rushing that. I think it might be more efficient, might be more productive for us to take those nominations at some time after the bids have come through. That if this council has committed to actually putting the park in the spring, there might be more interest in bidding on the name than to be putting in a bid on a park that might not happen.
And that date's not set in stone. I mean, it's not. It's just that we were trying to move things forward. And so we certainly can extend that date out.
Can we remove the date completely? Does there need to be a date for that? Because we're looking, I mean, we're looking for amount. First off, how much is that going to be? It seems I don't see a reason that there has to be a deadline, because maybe we hold off on this and see how the splash pad goes and find out that it's wildly successful. Maybe the value goes up. I'm not understanding why we want to rush into naming rights for this unless it's a substantial amount of money. I think 20 to 20,000 minimum is got to be in there, because it should be, any kind of naming rights play a substantial part of the whole capital plan. And so right now you're only talking about 10% of the whole overall project. That seems low in my mind, that if we're going to name something after somebody, that it should be a substantial gift. And if we can't get that, I think it's better that the city just retain that as the city splash pad. So I'm in agreement with David. I think that first up, that end date makes no sense and should be removed.
Yeah, I don't think you can remove a date. I think you have to have an end date in there. But at this point in time, I would be much happier approving the procedure but not setting a date until after we see the bids come back.
And we're okay with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I think
fine.
that'd be appropriate. We don't need to set a date to accept bids before we even see what the park is going to cost.
Okay. Oh, so
Any
then,
other-
then when the city, if they decide to go to the next step at that point, then we can actually advertise,
Yeah,
actually put it into place at that point.
I think having the agreement and kind of the parameters is good, because you do have people that are interested and have asked. So I think having the agreement as an option is great. I haven't agree as far as a date. Let's find out for sure how it all looks here by the end of the year, and then we can solidify the date. So is there a motion to approve the naming rights procedure and solicit bids for names with the exception of removing of the date at this time?
Oh,
Go.
all right. I'll second that. We're just going to specify the actual
wasn't-
closing
I
date.
wasn't
making a motion.
Oh, I will
I
make a
don't.
motion that we approve the naming right procedure. Soliciting bids for names, I think we don't have to rush that. Nobody's going to rush to do it. We don't even have an end date.
So the motion is to
Just to
approve the
approve the
naming rights
procedure.
procedure.
Anybody who's interested can see the procedure and consider what they want to do. But it'll be, another month or two or whatever before we actually set a date.
Perfect. We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Dave, seconded by Warren, that we approve the naming rights procedure as presented.
And then we'll set an end date at a later date.
We'll set it, after we see the bids.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought you meant. I was
Yep.
just making sure.
Any other discussion?
yeah, I was just wondering, these are just is there any finer print as to requirements or?
No? Are you looking for finer print?
Well, I'm just wondering.
Is there something you think we might be missing?
I don't know. I've never done this. But this just seems kind of short.
We did have like a 7-page, the one that we brought to the council before, and we're kind of given direction to shrink her down, so that's what we
Okay.
did.
Okay.
Is there going to be some expectation as to what that signage is going to look like? I know we have some park signage criteria, but how is that going to be regulated and kept up?
Well, we have once the sign is in, then it would become part of our park maintenance, and so of course we'd have to approve what the sign is. We have our current park sign standard. They all kind of look about the same with the window and the font and everything. So I think it was the expectation that it would be similar to that, but also with the understanding that if a business names it, they're probably going to want to use their logo. And that would all have to be approved by the park board. They'd make a recommendation to the park board and then to the council. So you have the final say of what that sign is going to look like.
So we could say that if someone wants to use the regular signage, they can. If they want to use their own logo, there would be another that would up the cost of what they would pay.
Sure,
Sure.
we could do that.
Should.
We could do that.
It should. I mean, part of what I just see in here that makes me a little uncomfortable is just this blank by the dollar sign. I think that there's going to be I want to make sure that we get the value of it, and I think there are ways of tiering it so that people who want more value will pay for that value rather than just a simple $1 amount.
The one thing there, if you're looking provisions in the third one on that naming rights agreement, it says the city reserves the right to accept or reject any bid. So if someone comes in super low for 20 years, we can easily reject it and go back out.
But I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that for any negotiation with any interested party regarding the sign, to give some flexibility in regards to how the pricing is done, it benefits the city. For example, as I said, a simple name for one price, a logo plus a name for another price. I mean, these are all things people do to, basically give added value to what people are purchasing and then also get a better return on that. It just seems pretty simplistic where it is right now, and I think would be problematic showing up, and then we have a yay or nay approach rather than giving a little more direction now so that when something shows up, it really reflects the value for the city.
Any other comments? again, we have a motion to approve the naming rights procedure. The procedure, we have an agreement is what you have attached.
It's an agreement, yeah.
Yeah, so we have the motion to approve the naming rights agreement rather than the procedure, just so we have a clarification.
Technically, I approved the procedure.
So
not
the agreement that's in
because I
here
think
is not
the
the
agreement is not necessarily what we're going to stick with.
So you're
You have a
approving
lot
a
of blanks in
procedure
here.
that
You
we
have a
don't
lot of
have.
blanks in here. Well, no, we have a procedure. It defines the requirements, it defines part of the decision-making. But the agreement is going to be hammered out with the person that wins it. When we grant that, the procedure, this is going to be nothing more than a starting point, because they're undoubtedly going to have changes as well.
Vicki, do you have clarification on what we're doing?
Well, we put the naming rights agreement in there because it kind of mimics the things that we're looking for in there. He's right in that we'll have to have an agreement with them, and whoever proposes the agreement will probably want some changes to it. So what we really want to know is, are these criteria that we've outlined acceptable to the city council? So that these different things that we outlined, and if you want to include in that flexibility that Mike talked about is maybe the name on the city standard is one and the name with the logo is another. I mean, we can include that right in the criteria, and then that again would be reflected in the agreement that we exercise. The council will have to actually approve this agreement with a specific party at the time when it comes. So you're kind of approving form.
That's my understanding, is that the form is nothing more than a reference point.
And
It's just, it's something you can look at, but the procedure is what we've approved. The criteria is here. The agreement will get hammered out later.
so first of all, Vicki, then I'd like this removed from naming rights agreement to naming rights procedure.
Sure.
That's the first thing.
Policy?
Okay.
Because I'm not
Well,
going to ask the council to approve a procedure when it says agreement in the packet that
Well,
was sent out.
and that's fine, and I'm looking at what we've written down here above it with the criterias, not looking at the agreement, which I consider a separate thing anyway.
Okay, that's a second, that's
Yeah,
what's
if
in
you
this
want to,
packet.
if you want to say that, well, yeah, what's in the packet is also a description and summary that outline the procedure.
So I have a motion by Dave and a second by Warren to approve the naming rights procedure, which is not the agreement, which is in this packet.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any other discussion?
I'm not going to say anything more.
All right, with that, I will call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor. All right, well, we beat that one all up. We're off the parks. Moving on to action F, approved job description, Public Works Supervisor.
Okay, the Personnel Committee has been working on the position of Public Works Supervisor for some time, and now they're recommending that we move forward with establishing and filling that Public Works Supervisor position. This would cover much of the administration of the department, but would also work in the field. It's been created by merging parts of the former Public Works Director position with current foreman positions and also duties assumed by other staff members when our Public Works Director retired in 2010. So we do have the proposed job description for you. It has been presented, and if the city council approves that, it'll be graded for placement on the non-union wage scale, after which the city can move forward with advertising and filling the position if they desire. The request today is for the creation of the position and approval of the job description. And as you see, it has a lot of the administrative parts of the Public Works Department. We would expect that person to come to the city council and give Public Works Department reports to the council, so it would be more of and they would be the lead person, but they would also be in the field. They can plow snow, they can shovel tar, but they can also work on the administrative side of it, maybe go to the park board or the airport board. So kind of a combination of administration and worker. So the recommendation of the committee is to approve the job description for the Public Works Supervisor.
Any questions?
Are there many changes on this job description from the last job description we had for the same?
When we had the Public Works Director, that position was pretty much all administration. This one adds to it the working side of it, the in-the-field working side of it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
This is a non-union position, correct?
Correct. And if you have recommendations to change wording or whatever, that's something that we can do. But what we do want to do is get it graded for points and that type of thing.
Okay. I have nothing more.
Any other questions?
I can ask it.
Yeah.
Vicki, there was just one thing that maybe I missed in here when I read this over. Is there, part of that job description, since this is a non-union job, is there anything that needs to be stated in this job description as far as when you're overseeing union employees to be able to, if you gotta put anything in there, like disciplinary?
Disciplinary, they recommend disciplinary action?
Right.
Or discipline or recommend
That
discipline?
they'd be somewhat in charge of that?
We could put it in there as an essential function. I think that's the assumed thing, maybe because they are the supervisor.
Right.
In our policy right now, the supervisor can do oral and I do written, the committee does suspension. I mean, there's already a hierarchy, and as a
Okay.
supervisor, they would automatically have that duty. But we can certainly put that as an essential function in the description.
That's, I kind of would feel more comfortable with that in there.
And I think you can just add it to number 8, which has a little bit of that
It has
in
some,
there
yeah.
about dealing with addressing concerns, issues, complaints, and resolves as appropriate or refers to council, mayor, whatever. So I would say that would be the area you would put additional stuff in there. if you need.
Well,
Probably.
number 2 does have discipline in it.
Oh,
Yeah, it
okay.
does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
All right, I did miss that. I'm sorry. Okay,
Any other comments?
thanks.
No? Okay, no other comments? Is there a motion by the council to approve the job descriptions for public works supervisor as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Mike, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Warren. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. Okay, moving on to G, approve demolition bids for hazardous buildings.
4 of the 5 buildings that the city council declared hazardous almost a year now are now eligible for demolition. The city has received consent from the owners and the mortgage holders to proceed with the demolition. They are the Stein property at 508 2nd Street South, Dubrava at 200 2nd Street South, Hoppy at 332 Birch Street North, and Arns at 625 Getty Street. We did obtain bids from 3 local contractors, and it was Ilgen Excavating at 34-1, Sherman at 21-525, and Mid-Minnesota Excavating at 29-194. So of the 5 houses, we are ready now to take down 4 of them. And I have that in Resolution 2014-81, accepting the quote for demolition and ordering the work to proceed to Sherman Excavating.
Any questions? Again, this is following up with the hazardous buildings that we've been addressing for almost a year now. So the final step is to get somebody hired to actually take them down. And we have 3 local bidders, which was nice, as well as our low bidder being Sherman Excavating. So I call for a motion to approve Resolution 2014-81, accepting the quote for demolition and ordering work to proceed with Sherman Excavating at $21,525.
So move.
Motion by Warren, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dave. Any discussion?
We're proceeding on house number 5 then, building number 5 is proceeding with whatever the next steps are.
We will need to, the next step for building number 5 is a court order.
So we're proceeding down that road.
Yes.
All right.
We are continuing to proceed on that road, however, we do have an interested party in purchasing it and causing the demolition for the property. So if that goes through, we won't have the cost of the demolition. But in the meantime, the court process is continuing.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. Okay, moving on to action item H, appoint accounting payroll specialist. Vicki?
Okay, interviews, and this has been over 2 months now already, actually. We did conduct interviews on September 24th. The committee was Warren Stone, David Thomas, Brian Fredericks, myself, and Karen Thostenson. And Karen is the prior finance director from the city of Melrose, so she did much of this same position. After negotiation, or after we ranked everybody and came into agreement on who to offer the position for, we have elected to offer the position to Jacqueline Kirchhoff. And the position, the rate of pay for the position has been negotiated to step 4 of the non-union wage scale. And Jacqueline is actually in the audience here tonight to see you guys in action and to meet you. I already told you this might not be the general rule of how a city council meeting normally goes, but what we're asking tonight is to appoint Jacqueline as the accounting payroll specialist upon successful completion of a background investigation at step 4 of the non-union wage scale.
Any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve Jacqueline Kirchhoff as an accounting payroll specialist upon successful completion of the background investigation at step 4 of the union scale as, non-union scale as presented?
So move.
A motion by Warren.
Second.
Seconded by Dave. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Aye. Motion carries 4 in favor, none against, 1 abstention.
Would you like to meet her, or she?
Jacqueline is actually...
Jacqueline is in the back corner of the room there, so you'll know at least who she is. And we expect her to start first half of November sometime, so.
And I have to say, this is my first experience to meet her as well, and this is a relative. So. Anyways, moving on, we'll go to action item 7I, approve the change in personnel policy for non-union employees.
The existing non-union personnel policy grants a floating holiday to non-union employees. As a general rule, most of us always use it the day after Thanksgiving. The employees are requesting that the city officially change to remove the paid holiday, the paid floating holiday, and just add the day after Thanksgiving. So instead of having a floater that we use whenever, the day after Thanksgiving is automatically the day, and this is the way Public Works Union negotiated it. But the issue here really isn't necessarily changing that. It's the fact that the day after Thanksgiving, we would then be closed. You know, Public Works is off, but they're off. But if all the administrative staff is off, City Hall is closed. So really the action here is changing it to the day after Thanksgiving, but that means City Hall is closed that day. And we'll flip a coin or decide which one of us has to work, or somebody will volunteer to work it if we need to keep it open. But from what we've seen, we don't do business. We don't have public walk-in or anything that day. Everybody expects us to be closed. So in the effort to just try to make things more streamlined and just to make it automatic, there was that request. And it's kind of been on the Personnel Committee's agenda to talk about for some time, and we're just finally getting to it because we're getting close to Thanksgiving, I guess. So.
And I think, just to follow up on that, we did check around what the other communities and cities do, and it's pretty consistent that they're closed the day after Thanksgiving. So.
And people have kind of done away with the floating holiday.
Right.
You know, it was kind of designed so people could take their birthday off, but I don't know how many people do that anymore.
All right. Any questions? Is there a motion to amend the personnel policy by eliminating the paid floating holiday for non-union employees and adding the day after Thanksgiving as a paid holiday? City Hall will be closed in this scenario.
So moved.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Warren. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Okay, moving on to our no additional action items this evening, so we'll go right into our unfinished business. Chamber representative for CVB board.
If you recall, last year in 2013, the CVB requested that the city code be amended to allow the chamber representative on its board to be an employee. Right now, our existing code specifically states the chamber representative is not to be a paid employee. The council did not elect to change the ordinance last year. However, they granted approval to allow the paid employee to serve for that 1 year. And so we need to decide, or the city should consider whether it does wish to amend the ordinance allowing that chamber representative to be an employee to continue, or if the chamber should be represented by a chamber member at large. Now, this will be an action item for a different meeting, but I think that, I don't know if you want to send this to the committee to hash it out, if you want to, have a discussion now. But this is an item of unfinished business that we're getting toward the end of the year that we need to clean up. So I don't know if you think the policy committee is the place to send that, or if you just want to discuss it as a whole at a future meeting.
Well, I think I'm certainly open to whatever the council feels. Do we feel that it needs to go to a policy committee, or we feel we can just address it here and
Yeah, I'll
resolve it?
step in because I'm the one who said, don't change it right away. Let's see how it works. I've been on the CVB board now for this year. And it's worked out fine. I think we had an amended policy available way back early at the year there, and we didn't approve it. So I don't think it has to go to the policy committee. Again, we have a policy. It's just a matter of, I think it's worked out, so it's time to go forward.
That's basically what my question was, is talking to the committee members, and since you're one of them and can speak for that, whether or not that person getting a paycheck from the chamber has changed how things operate at the CVB, and obviously it hasn't, so I really don't see a problem with it either, with amending it.
Okay.
Or going to the policy committee.
Is there any other comments? If not, then do we have a motion to amend the existing code and remove the not to be paid portion, or do you have a specific?
Well, I think I want the policy to come back again.
So you would rather
I mean,
us
it's
just come
been
back
10 or
rather than
11
any
months,
action?
so why
Okay.
don't, I think at this time, it's just, I don't think it needs to go to the policy committee. We just need to get the policy back.
Vicki, do you want to just bring the policy back? There's no
Sure.
action needed then.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on, final report, Beltline Getty Stormwater Project. Keith?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have the final results for what I call the North I-94 area, the hydraulic and hydrology study, also known as the Beltline Getty Street flooding issue that we're trying to deal with. As just for the publics, there is going to be no action on this tonight. This is for information only. The council just received a report. We'll go through the presentation, and it's intended that we'll bring this back at the next council meeting for discussion and potential action at that point. So with that, we'll move forward. The study area for the project is shown here on the bluish-white dashed line. Quite a large area, about 225 acres in total that was studied as associated with this particular issue. The main flooding issue that we currently have is located right here at Getty and Beltline. There's also some minor flooding that occurs down here on Fair Lane as well, but primarily this was related to the Getty and Beltline area. And it incorporates a large area to be looked at that the trunk stormwater system serves this whole 225 acres in order to deal with that issue. Just real quick, we've kind of seen this before. This is kind of the model that was created. Everything is quite detailed, all the major stretches. This is Fair Lane Drive. This is 12th Street right here. Kind of the Walmart is right in this location. 71 here and Getty Street through here. So it's quite extensive that was looked at for this whole 225 acres. We've developed 6 different alternatives associated with this for potential solutions, and I'll go through each one of these. Alternative 1 essentially includes some storm sewer improvements in that Getty Street Beltline area that goes east to the east edge of the Holiday Station going to the east. There's also 2 ponds on the west side of Trunk Highway 71. There's also a new pond on Fairlane Drive. This is what we'll kind of split in between west end, east end improvements. West end shows this is the new trunk system through here. This is Highway 71 here, 12th Street, where we extend a 36-inch pipe, or actually replace all of this piping is here with a 36-inch pipe that goes from here across to the west and actually extends up Getty Street a ways and replaces all the current piping that's in there. There's also 2 ponding areas, one that's located right here and another small pond that's located right up through here. This in particular, as you recall, the county is reconstructing this portion of 12th/Beltline, and then they're also then doing some repaving on the remainder of Beltline. So this dovetails nicely as to what they're doing on their project and potential for working together on this solution. The east end improvements with this include a stormwater pond. This would be a dry pond that would be located generally in this vicinity on Fairlane. And this particular improvement has actually the greatest positive impact on the entire system with that ponding in that general location there. Alternative 2 is similar. It still has that east end improvements, those trunk storm sewers, west end improvements that I mentioned, that storm sewer on Getty Street and all the way up to the Holiday Station, those ponds on the other side. But it also then includes a new parallel storm sewer pipe from Fairlane Drive into a different pond that's located kind of on the east side of the Walmart parking lot. And that looks like this. Once again, these are those west end improvements, the same thing that you previously saw. What's different are the improvements in here. So instead of the pond that was up on Fairlane, we need to replace this actually with a parallel pipe. It's a 42-inch pipe that connects up through here. This is Fairlane. This is 12. Extends across the north side of Walmart down into the pond. These ponds aren't exactly drawn to scale, so they're not exactly that big, but it comes into here and then discharges back into the existing storm sewer. This dash line is the existing storm sewer through here. What this does replaces that other pond up Fairlane. This provides some additional capacity from this location down, and then we also get some detention of that stormwater before we dump it back into the storm sewer system through here. We're trying to utilize the existing infrastructure as much as possible to reduce costs on these. It should be noted that actually all of these alternatives, we still have what we refer to as surcharging in the system, meaning the water during peak flows is actually above the tops of the pipes. And normally if we were designing a brand new system for a 10-year event, which these are designed for a 10-year event, we would normally not want them to be surcharging. That would be a typical new design. However, in a case where we're really looking at trying to work with the systems that we have to keep the cost down, we do allow certain amounts of reasonable surcharging to occur. Most of those are on some real deep trunks. A lot of this stuff through here is actually quite deep, so that surcharging really doesn't have an issue. And none of it in these cases comes anywhere real close to coming out of the ground, causing flooding areas elsewhere, if you will. The third alternative then, once again, still has that west side improvements that we discussed earlier, but it also then has replaced some of the existing storm sewer pipe is being replaced into that Walmart parcel. So in this case, once again, those west end improvements, and through here, instead of a parallel pipe in the pond here that you saw previously, this existing storm sewer from here to here is replaced. Actually a little bit up on Fairlane too. This is replaced 36-inch to 48-inch to 54-inch pipe through here. This is where we have some of that bottleneck. There's just not enough capacity in that region to take all that stormwater that's coming through there. And it should be noted where we see flooding up at that Getty's because that's the top end of the line up there, and it just can't get through the system. It just essentially gets held there like a pond, like it does, and then eventually when we get some excess capacity down here, it starts to drain out. So we need to provide additional capacity.
Keith, wasn't that line that's brought into Walmart parking lot there, I mean, that's a fairly new line, is it not?
This was moved. It used to be down through here actually, so it was pushed over. So most of this it's actually not terribly old. It was constructed in 99, I believe it was, or maybe it was 97. It's one of those 2 years. It was moved over here associated with Walmart, but like this portion was there previously, okay? The fourth option, once again, still has those west end improvements. In this case, instead of just the piping on that east side, that also includes another pond. These are, once again, the west end improvements. The difference here between the one you just saw is that we also add another surge basin down through here. What this does is it allows that water to spill out. This actually reduces that surcharging within the system because it allows more water to sort of get out of the system. It then frees up more capacity in the system. So this particular option, alternative 4, would be a better option than alternative 3. However, there's sort of a hierarchy to them. 1 and 2 are actually better than all the ones that you've seen thus far. Okay. So just a little nuance to that one. Now, when we get to alternatives 5 and 6, those are really different. We still have most of the things as it relates to west of Trunk Highway 71, but this is the option where we're going down, we're crossing Trunk Highway 71 in that Sinclair Lewis Interpretive Center area across out to Timber Lane, and it kind of goes around the south end of Walmart. So it's a new trunk system, if you will, through there. And this is what this one looks like. And it really shows the entire thing here. You'll see the improvements on this side are generally the same up to 71, but then we come south. There's a small ponding area that we have here in the Sinclair Lewis Interpretive Center area. We come across the Trunk Highway 71, across the Timber Lane, down Timber Lane, and across and around the west side and the south side of Walmart. In this option, there is no pond in this particular area. So it's a new trunk system, essentially separating that water that currently goes to the east, separating it from this system. But there's a lot of piping with it, therefore it's a more expensive solution to the situation. Alternative 6 is very similar, with the exception that it then also adds that surge basin down this end, which once again drops that hydraulic grade line in the entire system, provides more capacity. So 6, as an example, would be a better option than provide some more benefits than alternative 5 in this case, okay? Want to let you know that these primarily the first 2 options, you will see this in a minute, but alternatives 1 and 2 are the ones that alternative 1 is the one that I'm recommending. Alternatives 1 and 2 are the best alternatives out of all 6 of these that we've come up with. We did actually meet with the county on this on Monday, and went through those alternatives in some detail with them. They felt very comfortable with those options, and we're very hopeful to move forward with something that's obviously, I would say their position is they'd like to see what the city wishes to do so that the project can move forward and decide where they're going to go with their final plans and specifications for being bid this winter and constructed next year. So that's kind of where they're at this point. Here is the cost summary and we just did in detail the alternatives 1 and 2. It was very apparent the other alternatives were much more expensive, and these ones offered the most bang for the buck. And alternative 1, as you'll see, as you can see, the west end is the same price. It was the same exact improvements on both sides. The east end for alternative 1 is about just short of $166,000. For alternative 2, there was a much more piping than the pond. That's $447, almost $1,000. For a total alternative 1 of just short of $700,000, $696,000, we'll round to the nearest thousand. And alternative 2 is $977,000. So pretty significant savings with alternative 1. And alternative 1 actually gives us the largest positive impact on the system overall. It's the cheapest and provides us the lowest hydraulic grade lines within the project. No flooding occurs at that Getting and Belt line. That's all taken care of. And the minor flooding that occurred at Fairlane in that low spot is also taken care of as it relates to this particular option. So fairly easy to construct, and fairly easy to get it done if one was to move forward with the project. So it works out quite well. So those are the 2 alternatives. I would say alternative 1 is what we're recommending. Alternative 2 is kind of a fallback position. If there is some land acquisition costs are included in these estimates, are included in here. So if something can't be worked out, there is a fallback for Plan B, if you will. So that's what how I've characterized 1 and 2. So with that, I'll entertain any questions. Once again, we'll discuss this in more detail at the next council meeting, and we'd be looking for whether the council wishes to have some direction at that point.
I've got 2 questions, Keith.
Yes. Do you want me to go back to anything?
Yeah, if you could. Did you have a price on 5 and 6?
We have a rough price on those, but they're like $1.5 million.
Okay. And then could we see that design with number 1 and 2 again? Or how that?
Let me go up there. So basically here's the west end of 1.
Okay.
And I gotta go a little further. So this is the east end of 2, alternative 2. So in here, there is a parallel pipe. This pipe is much shallower. As an example, this pipe stays in operation, but it's quite deep through here. This pipe is actually quite shallow through here, so it's much easier digging and installation-wise. And then there's a pond in this location over here.
I'm just wondering about future development on that side where that pond is. You know, if that does expand out or if businesses come into that, wouldn't we be better with 5 or 6 coming down?
Well, here, I would answer it this way. One is that whole particular area out there, that's quite a fairly large area. As you may have noted from the initial study, that point's not really in this. So which means that whole area needs to kind of be its own standalone system. Now with that, they're going to have some ponding, just like Walmart did. They're going to have some ponding on that site. So there could be an opportunity for some joint use, if you will, of a ponding area, which would make sense for that particular parcel. And we do have costs as it relates to acquiring land for a pond are included in the cost that you have seen. And here is the east end improvements of alternative 1, which, I mean, there are a couple options here. This would be one. It's a little more difficult over here, but it could be done. There's probably be a little more excavation cost because the land starts to come uphill to the north and east through there, but it could be done through here. It just so happens this particular spot where it's located is just the right size, and it fits quite well in that location there. So
Creating a pond in that particular location takes away some commercial property that could be developed. Are we taking something away as potential opportunity by putting that pond there? I mean, it's going to be, I realize it's not to scale, but it's a fairly large pond that you're thinking. I mean, it's taking a big portion of that property that's currently there.
Well, that's true. There is certainly some potential for something else to go in there, so it has to be, that's ultimately your decision as to, is this the best use of that property? I come up with, help you decide, here's some options that you can look at, and you have to weigh some of those other issues. This is by far gives us the best the positive hydraulic impacts with this particular. In particular, this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is the one element that has the single largest impact to the entire system, is this right here, which I kind of would have never have guessed when we first started, but when we dived into it, looked at the existing system, this had a huge impact on the overall positive. Now, you might look at, can we do like phase 1 or 2? Could I do one part of it and not the other part? Unfortunately, the answer is no. You really have to do them all together because, as an example, say we do the west end improvements and don't do this, we actually move some of the flooding. It gets worse down here because we're pumping more water through this system, and it backs up and we end up with more down here. So we just sort of move the flooding potential to another area. So we really kind of have to do both elements in order to solve the problem. So, and unfortunately, the west end is where the county's looking to work, so working together on a project there would be in our best interest from a cost perspective. So, but just so you know, you kind of have to do both sides in order to really make some impact. So,
I have 2 questions. In regards to the west end, you just mentioned it about working jointly with the county. Have we looked at what share of this project the county would be picking up if we were to work jointly with them and do this at the same time?
I don't have the exact answer to that, but I have a part answer to that. The answer would be yes. The costs that you see include the full system cost, okay? They will be picking up a portion of that cost. The amount of that I can't tell you at this point in time. That actually is determined by MnDOT, actually makes those determinations. So until a design kind of moves forward, I don't know that number, but we could probably do some estimates of what that would be. They pretty much usually take the right-of-way a little bit larger, so it's not going to be a huge amount, but it would be something, significant, fairly significant to help.
Okay. And then my second question is, you're going right by a holding pond in front of Walmart there, and we haven't used that at all. Is there a reason that's not usable? Right there.
In through here? Well, they've got this as, where they have development plans for those particular areas, so I haven't looked at taking these. I mean, that is a possibility.
No, I'm talking, isn't there not a pond that's?
There's a pond on the south side, correct? I think
There's
there's
a
a
pond
little,
right in front of
I think
Walmart.
there's a little pond
There's a
in
pond
through
right in
here.
front of Walmart, right there.
Right there.
Yeah, there's a little pond in through there, but it's not, it's taking water from that system already, so there's not excess. Whether they'd be willing to, perhaps we could purchase some property here to make that pond larger. I mean, that's kind of a detail we can get into, but that would work if we could get into that particular parcel. That would certainly be an option. So, but that gives some options in here, whether it's a pond here,
Right.
perhaps it could be here, but we have some abilities to work with a couple different landowners.
Well, my thought would be is if you have an existing pond, and I don't know that I can recall ever seeing water in it. So,
I think it's a dry pond meant to be.
Right. So
And all these ponds, just so you know, are designed currently to be dry ponds that we
Right.
have.
But that particular spot where that pond is today is already being used as a pond.
Yep.
I guess is my point. So my point is, if they've already allocated a certain portion of that parcel to
Yep.
not usable, I mean, what's the difference to make it bigger?
Right.
I don't know the cost, and that would be something.
Sure.
I would certainly recommend we at least look at that to see if
Yep.
that's a
Right.
cost savings, because I think, as you mentioned earlier, your pond up on Fairlane is sizable, and it serves a very important piece. But I think that's taking up some very large portions of property there that might cost us significant dollars. We don't know that until we actually get into that part of it. But,
Yep.
and when would the county be looking for an answer from us? Is it something that needs to happen relatively soon for their planning?
I kind of talked to them about timelines, and I said there'd be no decisions tonight. I told them that we wouldn't be looking for some decisions until our next meeting, but really, we kind of need to move forward. So if it's not that meeting, it really would absolutely have to be the next one, that if there is a positive, we're going to move forward with something. Otherwise, it gets really tight for them to get the project done, and frankly for us, because what they've indicated is they'd probably like us as a city to probably design that portion for them, and it would just get included into their plans. That would become part of the whole cost portion. We'd have to get worked out for those. But that's their preliminary indication. They would like the city to kind of take care of that. Because we've done all the details and that, they thought it'd be just easiest that way. So you kind of we need to get moving if that we're gonna move this forward. And we kind of knew this was a push so all along, but so we're there, and it's time to decide if this is something we can afford and wish to move forward with.
Would it be possible to have an idea of how much the cost share would be?
I think we could get an estimate. I could sit down with them and see if there's a way we could kind of figure out about what it might be.
That would help too.
By that, I can do that for the next meeting. Hopefully they will be willing to do that, but if so, we'll try to get something put together.
Well, certainly from a city's perspective, we've tackled some pretty large projects over the last, 5 years for sure, even 10. 4th Street just finishing up this year. And we've always known that the issue on 12th Street and Getty needs to be addressed. Just, I think it all comes down to the timing, and then what's the impact to the property owners that are going to be, impacted by this project. Obviously, there's costs.
Yep.
And it's trunk, so there's a significant cost to the city to build it as well.
Right.
We knew what it was like out here on 4th Street. We did enact some unique funding mechanisms to help offset some of the cost with 4th Street by doing the $2 fees for stormwater utility fees. This is again a trunk project. So, one of my questions would be is there a way is there extra dollars within that fund to help offset some of the cost on the 12th Street project like we did on the 4th Street.
I know Vicki was starting to look at some of those things. I know from an assessment perspective, we, at this stage, would probably be looking at that wouldn't be a part of this. So it would be coming from other city funding vehicles. I don't know if you have anything you wish to share at this point or not. It was...
I'm just getting these numbers just like the rest of you guys, so
Yeah.
I'd have to look at that a little bit.
Yeah, we talked a little bit on Monday and said, here's kind of the numbers we're looking at, and Vicki was going to start to look at those things, but it's early. That's why there's no decisions here tonight by any means. So, but it's things you can be thinking about. Most of everything I discuss is written in that first part of the report. So hopefully that will help you as you start to go through that and look at it in more detail. But then we can certainly, I'll try to get that breakdown, at least a ballpark estimate on that for the next meeting. And I'm sure by then Vic will maybe have some ideas perhaps on funding vehicles for it. And then we can go from there.
Very good. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Another project. And not a cheap one. All right. We have finished our unfinished, and we got just one item of new business. Vicki, do you want to just outline that?
The new business is kind of unfinished business. It's for a long time. We've been operating month to month on our charter franchise agreement because things in technology and everything is changing. So now the new charter actually is proposing that we finalize that amended franchise agreement. They did present to us an amendment to the agreement, and we've been going through that with comparing it to the existing agreement and finding where the gaps are and the changes are, et cetera. So we're looking at sending this to the policy committee to dig into that in more detail and come back with a recommendation. We have the franchise with RVIG, and this is our other one with charter. So we try to keep them fairly consistent, but this is a new language, so we need to look at that in detail. So I just want to send that to the committee.
Any questions? Otherwise, general consent, we'll move that to the policy committee to review. Okay, thank you.
Blame them when it goes south.
Yeah. All right. Moving on then to our consent agenda. We have a few things on our consent agenda this evening. We have our schedule of claims for a total of unpaid claims of $171,852.72. Paid claims of $36 for a total of $171,888.72. We also have September checks, check numbers 2303E through 2333E, as well as 035527 through 035611. We also had 3 payroll transfers. These September checks are totaling $286,284.65. We also have a resolution here to accept contributions, Resolution 2014-81, the men's card playing group of $199, which is allocated to the senior center, and Geronimo Energy, which is a rescue tube, which has a value of $2,500 to the fire department. I want to make sure and we send our thank yous to both of those groups for their donations to the city. It's very much appreciated.
Could you know what that rescue tube is?
What it is it is a grain bin rescue tube. So if somebody has been fallen in a bin and trapped in the grain, this is a tube that goes down and it has different elements that you got to use with it, but you're able to put the tube around somebody and be able to rescue them without the weight and the contraction of the grain.
Great.
So yeah, it's really, we're actually training with it, I believe, this month. So in a grain bin to see how it all works. But yeah, it's a really nice piece of equipment. Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion by Keith. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dave. Is there any discussion? Call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. We have several informational things that were in your packet. Couple things that just basically are reminders. Reminder of the general election, which is November 4th. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. here at City Hall. We also have a Stearns County Municipal League meeting on October 21st, 6 o'clock in Cold Spring. So I'd recommend folks to participate or attend that. And we also have Nest Day, October 24th, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that information is also in your packet about what the events are and what's going on out there. Also, it's not in here, but I just want to remind people that there's a Meet the Candidates Forum on the 20th, which is Monday. Starts at 6:30 p.m. at the Elmer Z's. You can come in and meet the candidates, and also there will be a question session for folks to ask questions and get a little more information on each candidate. So I encourage the community to participate in that as well. So anything else, Vicki, on our informational items? Okay, at this time, the city will now go into closed session. The closed session is authorized under Minnesota Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3C3 to develop or consider offers or counter offers for a purchase of sale of real and personal property. The city is considering 2 parcels of property for potential purchase. The properties are commonly known as the racetrack property, south of the freeway at 40252 410th Street, and also the Younger property located at the intersection of Trunk Highway 71 and State Highway 28. Motion to recess the regular meeting and convene the closed session.
So moved.
All right, motion by Keith, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Keith and seconded by Warren. Any discussion? Call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. Thank you all for attending this evening. Our council regular meeting is back in session, and at this time, a brief overview of our closed session is the city council has provided guidance to staff for final negotiations for the purchase of properties. Final action on any purchases, including purchase price, will occur on the November 5th meeting unless the city council calls for a special meeting that will be notified to the public prior to November 5th. Vicki, do you have anything else for our council meeting?
I do not.
All right, with that, that is all we have on our agenda. Is there any other comments? Otherwise, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mike and seconded by Dave to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.